Oh, that was loud.
Oh, boy. So the new court building look like it's just about complete.
You know, I know, I'm guessing, I'm just assuming they don't wanna put up all this plexiglass in the new building after they put
Right.
it all up here. I'm excited to see the inside, I hear it's quite a nice building.
I mean, just looking in the window, looks like it's.
You know, I actually had a couple witnesses go over there, because they
Oh.
thought it was open, and I'm like, now I have to call everybody and say, not the new building, the old building.
I parked in that lot, in front of the new building, thinking it was already open.
You know, I'm gonna just be happy to not have to use this bumpy, messed up parking lot anymore, because this
That's
is a
true.
mess back
It
here.
is a mess, yeah.
Yeah, this is just a mess back here.
Yeah.
All right, so this will get kicked, I'm guessing. And then, this is Mr. Carter's case, waiver. All right, well, just as soon as Judge is ready, I'm sorry about my tardiness, I had to complete my 9 AM with Judge Phil.
I was the one that was tardy. I had a couple of matters in Westland, well, it was Zoom, but I had a 36th district matter in Westland.
I guess Judge Bill was just having some awful technical difficulties.
Oh, was
didn't- He wasn't even able to get logged on until almost 11 o'clock for his
Really?
9 AM document. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
So everybody's kind of behind.
yeah, right. Hey, Mr. Hawkins, how you doing? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 21st, so that's next week, right? Yeah, okay, I guess that's, is it Wednesday? Yeah. Yeah, I guess so, because I emailed, yeah, all right, I sent him an email, so, yeah, so you made direct contact. Yeah, thanks. Okay, all right.
He just walked into the office, you know.
All right, see you next Wednesday, Mr. Hawkins.
No, I don't
Mhm.
know.
Bye.
All right, Paul, let's go on, you gotta put a mask on, Paul. I gotta make okay. Yeah. And Tim, get King and tell him to go in there. Please. Just call him and, I thought we talked about something else. Okay.
Okay. Judge is coming.
What we're supposed to be doing, all those guidelines that are written, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Please rise. 34th District Court is now in session. The Honorable Tina Brooks Green presiding.
Good morning, almost afternoon. Come on up, People versus Diamond Mock.
Good morning, Your Honor. Larry King, P 78774, on behalf of the people.
You're good, Mr. Washington, for the moment.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Neighborhood Defender Services of Detroit, Earl Washington, on behalf of Ms. Diamond Mock.
And Mr. King,
Your Honor, our witnesses were personally served by the officers in this case. However, no one has appeared in court today. This matter was set for 11, it's almost noon. So unfortunately, Your Honor, at this point in time, people are unable to proceed.
Mr. Washington,
Your Honor, defense moves to dismiss.
motion to dismiss granted.
Thank you.
You're all set. Mr. King, what about DeAndre Saunders?
DeAndre Saunders, I believe, is going to be a hold.
Are you ready on that case?
Defense is here.
People versus DeAndre Saunders.
Good morning again, Your Honor. Larry King, P 78774, on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Matthew Forrest, P73168, standing in for Attorney of Record Ben Gonick for Mr. DeAndre Sanders, who is present, standing to my left.
Are the people ready to proceed?
The people are prepared to proceed. I will state for the record, Your Honor, that Lenny Dawson, the complaining witness on the domestic violence, is not present. We'll be proceeding with one of our officers to testify as to the R&L.
So are you, hang on just a second. And as we're standing here too, everyone, if you're comfortable, you can take off your mask while you're where you are. And if you get up or whatever, you got to put it back on. But since we're all appropriately social distance, you could take off. So are you dismissing count one?
We're not dismissing count one, Your Honor. I'd like the court to hear the.
Oh, well, actually, it's a misdemeanor, so it tags. I mean, it's an enhancement anyway when it
Right,
goes
the enhanced,
downtown.
if we're unable to provide evidence today as to the domestic, the people would withdraw the third offense enhancement, transition that to a second offense. That way it's a misdemeanor and it would tag along with the resisting arrest.
Okay, well, we'll see how it plays out. Go ahead and call your first
Thank you,
witness.
Your Honor. Calling Officer Rennie.
Will you get Officer Rennie, Officer Rapp? How many witnesses, Mr. King?
One, Your Honor.
Pardon?
One,
Just one?
yes.
And then my understanding is that Mitchell is a waiver. I saw when I was walking up the hall, I saw Mr. Mitchell in my waiting room, but I didn't see Mr. Carter, or else
Yes,
I would have
Mr.
jumped in and done that.
Carter- Mr. Carter and I and Ms. Mortsfield have all been communicating on that, and it is my understanding that it's going to be a waiver on Zoom at noon.
Come on up, officer.
Can I ask counsel? Counsel, can you spell your last name for me, please? Counsel?
I'm sorry, Forrest.
And can you raise your right hand?
Thank you, sir.
Solemnly swear affirm testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, and if you feel comfortable, you can leave the mask on, or you are allowed to take it off while you're seated and testifying. Go ahead, Mr. King.
Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Michael Rainey,
And sir, how are you employed?
police officer of Van Buren Township Police,
How long have you been with Van Buren Township Police?
approximately 13 years.
I'd like to turn your attention to March the 2nd of 2020 in the evening hours at about 7:30 p.m. Were you working then?
I was
And do you work alone or with a partner?
alone.
Okay. Did you have occasion to be dispatched to an address on East Archwood Drive, specifically 41450 East Archwood Drive?
I did.
And what was the nature of the dispatch that brought you to that address?
For an assault between a male and female.
Were you in full uniform at the time?
I was,
Was your badge displayed?
yes,
Were you, what type of vehicle were you driving that day?
a fully marked Van Buren Township patrol vehicle.
Did you make contact with anyone when you arrived at that location?
I did.
And who did you make contact with?
Mr. Sanders.
Okay. Was anyone else with you when you made contact with Mr. Sanders?
Initially, I was by myself.
Okay, and what was the reason for you making contact with Mr. Sanders?
That he matched the description of the male involved in the assault.
Okay. What happened after you made contact with Mr. Sanders?
I made contact with him, asked him if he was the one who called the police. He stated he was not, that he just stepped outside to have a cigarette. I advised him that he matched the description of the male that was involved in the assault, and he stated that there were several people outside that matched his description.
Okay, what happened next?
I continued to ask him for his name, which he refused to provide me. I advised him that there was nobody else outside and nobody else matched his description.
And what happened after that?
Once he continued to refuse to provide me with his name or identification, I advised him that he was going to be placed under arrest for interfering with police and for interfering with our investigation.
Okay, so after you advised him that he was going to be placed under arrest, what, if anything, did he do?
There was another officer that had arrived at that time, myself and Officer Edge. Advised him to put his hands behind his back. He refused to. At that point, we each attempted to grab one of his arms and place him behind his back.
And how did he react to that?
He attempted to pull away from us, and we had to pin him between ourselves and a vehicle that he was standing next to.
When you said he attempted to pull away, what specifically did he do?
He attempted to pull his arms away from us back towards the front of his body.
Was he successful in getting any of his arms away from you?
No, we were able to control him between ourselves and the vehicle.
Did you need to use force to do that?
Other than muscling his arms and holding him there until we get handcuffs on, no.
When you say muscling his arms, what do you mean?
just being able to grab him and pull him behind his body while he was trying to pull him forward.
At any point in this, in this incident, did you make any requests of him to do anything in particular with his body or hands?
Just to be turned around and place his hands behind his back.
And did he comply with those requests?
No, we had to pull his hands ourselves behind his back.
The person that you had contact with this day, Mr. DeAndre Sanders, do you see him present in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Can you please identify him by where he's seated and what he's wearing?
sitting next to the defense counsel wearing a brown sweatshirt.
No further questions, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Forrest?
Good morning, Officer Rainey.
Good morning.
Now, you stated that you were dispatched to this location on Archwood Drive in Van Buren Township for some sort of assault, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And upon arriving at that location, you indicated that you had some information regarding the description of the person that was involved in that assault, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And prior to speaking with that individual, you hadn't spoken to any other people that were involved in that assault, had you?
Correct.
Okay. So all that you knew before arriving at this location was information that you received from dispatch, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And part of that information was someone in a red hooded sweatshirt, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe a red sweatshirt and a red hat.
Okay. And you saw who you later identified as Mr. Sanders standing in the parking lot, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and Mr. Sanders was alone, is that right?
Correct.
And you attempted to speak with Mr. Sanders, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And upon speaking with Mr. Sanders, you asked him for his name, is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Sanders refused to provide you with his name, is that right?
Correct.
And you advised him, after he refused to provide you with his name, that he was under arrest for interfering with an investigation. Is that what you testified to?
Yes, after I had advised him why I made contact with him.
Okay. So Officer Reedney, are you telling this court that someone is required to provide their name to you, otherwise they would be interfering with an investigation?
Depending on the circumstances.
Okay, and in your mind, under these circumstances that you found yourself on March the 2nd, that was interfering in your investigation, is that right?
Based on his description and that he was possibly involved in an assault with another subject, yes.
But you didn't have cause to place him under arrest for an assault at that point, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's why you stated to him, and also you documented in your report, that the reason why you went to effect an arrest was simply for interfering with the investigation, is that right?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Anything else? Mr. King?
In addition to asking him his name, did you ask him any other questions?
I believe I asked him if he was the one who called police, and he stated no.
Did you inquire to him as to whether or not he was involved in an assault?
I believe I made statements to the regards of that the reason I was even stopping and talk to him was because he matched a description of a person involved in an assault that had occurred.
But did you specifically ask him any questions about an assault that occurred?
I can't recall off the top of my head.
Did you make contact with anyone else that day?
After Mr. Sanders was arrested and placed in the rear of my patrol vehicle, I had made contact with the female involved in the assault who had come outside at that point.
Objection outside the scope of cross-examination.
I'm going to allow it.
Nothing further, thank you.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down, Officer Rennie. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Motion?
People move for bind over on the resisting and obstructing charge. Obviously, Your Honor, there's been no evidence presented today as to the domestic violence charge. So I believe the third offense notice would fail bind over, but the misdemeanor domestic should proceed with this case if it were to bind over on the resisting and obstructing.
Argument?
Judge, firstly, as to count 2, we would object to the bind over and ask the court for dismissal. Officer Rini testified that the sole reason for his placing Mr. Sanders under arrest was for interfering with an investigation. And if refusing to provide one's name to a police officer when there is no other evidence of a crime to be arrested for is an arrestable offense, then we are living in scary times, Judge. And People v. Marino indicates that a person may resist an illegal arrest, and the police and the prosecution have the duty to establish that the arrest was lawful before making a charge of assaulting, resisting, or obstructing a police officer. And in this case, there is no interference with an investigation for simply refusing to provide one's name. Officer Rini had multiple opportunities to speak with the alleged victim in this case, to make a positive identification of Mr. Sanders and then proceed from there, but he did not do so. And he stated on the record and in his police report that the reason for the arrest was that Mr. Sanders did not provide his name. And so given that, Judge, it does not, Mr. Sanders' actions were resisting an illegal arrest. There is no cause to arrest Mr. Sanders for his actions out there by refusing to provide one's name. As to count 1, we'd ask for a dismissal. We are ready to proceed.
And let me ask you a question, Mr. Forrest. And under circumstances, if the police walked up to him with no other indication and said to him, "What's your name?" I would agree with you. They get a phone call. I mean, they get sent to an address, and they're investigating what appears to be a domestic situation, and so they're doing a official criminal investigation. And then they come up to your client and ask him his identity because that's the gentleman that they're looking for with his description, and he refuses. You think that doesn't make a difference at all?
Mr. Sanders has a right to remain silent. He is under no obligation to provide any information whatsoever to the police. And Officer Rini testified that he didn't have any cause to arrest Mr. Sanders at that point for anything other than what he claims to be interfering with this investigation.
Mr. King?
Your Honor, in reviewing the lawfulness of an arrest, it is not a subjective standard, rather an objective standard. And viewing it in the totality of the circumstances, the question is, objectively, whether a reasonable officer, knowing what that officer knew at the time, had cause to arrest the defendant. The statements of the officer who actually did the arrest as to what he was under arrest for may inform the situation, but those are subjective statements of that officer, not really part of the objective test. If we look at this in a totality of the circumstances, objectively, we will see that the officer was dispatched to the location for an alleged assault. He made contact with a person matching the description of the defendant in the alleged assault at the location where the alleged assault had occurred. This matched the description of the defendant not only by physical description but also by clothing. This person was not forthcoming with the officers. He was the only person in the area at all, let alone the only person matching the offense. At that point in time, I believe the officer had probable cause to detain Mr. Sanders. Looking at this objectively, I don't see how the officer didn't have probable cause. It is much different than the position presented by the court, whereas if I were to walk up to somebody on the street as a police officer and say, "Hey, you random person, give me your name," that's one thing. But when you're dispatched to a situation for an assault and you have several other factors that lead you to believe that this person is a suspect in that assaultive case, I believe that objectively looking at this based on the information known to Officer Rini, while he may have stated you're under arrest for resisting and obstructing, I think he had probable cause to arrest him for the alleged assault, considering the factors of his presence at the location and matching the description of the suspect of the assault. In addition to the timeliness of it, he came to the location immediately after the 911 call.
Anything else, Mr. Forrest?
Yes, Judge. he may as well, I mean, he may have had the ability to detain him, but that's not what he did. He stated that he was placing him under arrest for interfering with the investigation. And I don't know how he could have probable cause to arrest him for a domestic violence when he hasn't even spoken with the alleged victim or any witnesses to the crime. The only information he had was from dispatch. And so, given that, and the fact, and the words matter, and the fact that he was placing him under arrest for interfering with an investigation by refusing to provide his name, Mr. Sanders, again, has a right to remain silent, doesn't have to provide anything to the police officer at that time. And that's how this officer chose to handle the situation, which was wrong. And as to count one, we are entitled to an examination on count one. There's no evidence.
He already said he's dropping the felony. You're not entitled to an exam on the misdemeanor part. It travels with it. And he already dropped the felony.
I'm just-
Go
Thank
ahead,
you,
you can make a record.
No, that's fine, Judge. That's all I have.
Anything else, Mr. King?
No, and just so the record is clear, yes, I withdraw the third offense notice as to the domestic violence.
I think it's an issue of fact. I'm going to bind the defendant over. The arraignment on the information will take place 2 weeks from today, October the 29th at 9 a.m. I'll continue the bond.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. King, do you want to jump on Zoom?
I will jump on Zoom from my little room across the hall.
That's fine on Mitchell, and we'll do the bind over.
Have a nice afternoon.
Is he still on his Heather?
Yes.
Go grab him. Let's get rid of that. Not
I'll
you,
grab-
somebody, not you, come back, Mr. Sanders.
With the tether thing.
Just hold on.
Talk to him, not to me. You give it, hello?
Oh, I thought you called me.
I'm on an exam. Do you need a, no, you're good. Do you need a search warrant? Raise your right hand, solemnly swear affirm the testimony or the information in the search warrant is true to the best of your knowledge and belief. Give me 5 minutes, send it to me on an email. I'll go up the hall and grab my iPad as soon as I jump off the bench, and I'll send it right back. Thanks, you're welcome, bye.
You said hello. I thought you
Sorry
said
about that.
Paula.
Yeah, I knew it was a search warrant.
I thought you said Paula. No.
Mr. King, there's with the count one felony kicked, there's a bond with a tether, and Mr. Forrest wanted to raise the issue of the tether.
Yes, thank you, Judge. Given, after today's proceedings, we would ask that the court remove the tether from Mr. Sanders and continue the other conditions.
Your Honor, with respect to people would object to the removal of the tether, this is a domestic violence incident. It continues as a domestic violence misdemeanor, even though it's not a domestic violence felony. I don't know why our complaining witness is not here. It could be out of fear. It could be for any number of reasons. However, I think it's still prudent to make sure that the defendant knows.
Officer Harrison, have you had any contact with the victim?
No, I've tried a lot.
And she's avoiding you?
Yes.
She's not here. There's
I
no
like-
evidence to the contrary. I'll leave the no contact, because I'll put it right, it'll go right back on and they'll file new charges.
Haven't had none, ma'am.
Okay, I'll release the tether.
Thank you.
Do you want to take this to Heather to have them talk about how they release the tether? So if you walk up, just have Heather talk to Mr. Forrester. Okay?
Thank you, Judge.
And I'll be on Zoom
Yep,
for
okay, thank you.
other matter. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep, thanks. And then Paul, I can do the waiver on Zoom.
And Judge Gregory Bell says hi, by the way.
Oh,
I told him I had to be in your court.
it's been a while.
You don't want me to record anything?
Oh, no, not on the waiver, thank you.
You're
We're all
welcome.
good for today. Pardon? We're all good for today then.
Gonna find out where she
Thanks.
wants to- Are you going on?
Anytime.
You're waiting
I'm
for-
going on Zoom to do well, we're already on live stream, but I'm gonna get Mr. Mitchell's case.
Yep, they're already up.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go do that right now. I released his tether, so if you can give Mr. Forrest the information to get Mr. Sanders off of the tether. Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome anytime, Judge.
Okay, I'll do it right now, Judge.
Good morning, Mr. Carter.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Mr. King.
Perfect
Hello.
timing.
Hello
Yeah.
again.
Sorry if you had to wait a minute. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell. Actually, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
People versus Antonio Mitchell. For the record, Mr. King.
Yeah, good afternoon, Your Honor. Larry King, P78774, on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I think we're having Mr. Mitchell, can you hear?
Let's wait a second. He's
Yeah.
trying to connect audio.
This is Mike Carter on behalf of Mr. Mitchell, but I think he did it wrong. Let me give him a call real quick. This is what happened last time.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah, I think he's pressing the right button. Hold on.
You're usually better than this, Mr. Carter.
know,
I'm making sure your clients are on.
I know, Tonio. Hey, when you log on, do you see the thing that says connect through internet? Yeah, put join through internet when you hit that for the audio. Try to do that. Okay. There we go.
I
Can you
think
hear
you
me?
got it now.
You got it, Tonio? You got it?
Yeah, now you got to unmute
hit
yourself.
the
It's
mute
got a
button.
little red line. Yeah, I know you can hear us. So you got a little red speaker thing and it's got a line through it. You got to hit unmute. Work in progress here.
I know. Antonio, on the left side of your phone at the bottom, hit your phone and hit that red. Yeah.
Ah, you got it.
All right.
Perfect. Oh, now see, now I don't ever do this on my phone, so I didn't realize it's the bottom left.
It's
I'm
the
always
bottom
telling
left.
people it's somewhere on your screen. Just
Yeah.
unmute yourself.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Now you can hear us, Mr. Mitchell,
Yes,
and we can hear you. Perfect. People versus Antonio Mitchell. This matter was set for an exam today. My understanding that it's going to be a waiver. Is that correct, Mr. Carter?
That is correct, Your Honor. I spoke with my client, Mr. Mitchell, at length about this decision, and at this time, he would like to exercise his right to waive his preliminary examination.
The defendant and his attorney having consented to the waiver by Zoom. I will bind the defendant over. The arraignment on the information will take place on October the 29th. I have been saying 9 a.m. I have absolutely no idea if there's any validity to that. I don't really think there is, but.
There isn't, Judge, but I'll keep Mr. Mitchell informed, and we will be there.
And Mr. Mitchell, your attorney will be in contact with you to discuss if it's not on that day, what the alternative date or time is going to be. Okay, do you understand?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. All right, anything else for the record?
Not from the defense, Judge.
Mr. King, anything
thank
else
you,
for the
Your Honor.
record?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you very much. Apparently that's a wrap. Thank
Thank
you,
you
Mr.
all.
Mitchell, Mr. Carter, Mr. King,
Thank you.
everybody have a great day.
Tony, I'll call you right now.